Hey guys, is Candace Owens going too far, or is she on the right track? There's a clear divide in the conservative podcast community right now. Candace seems to be at odds with many voices that once stood on the same side as her. Not all, but many influential people in the same community. Candace Owens has always been a controversial figure. There are people who love her candor, and there are people who think she's overstepping her bounds. And in between, there are people like me just watching, listening, trying to figure out what's really going on and whether Candace is exposing the truth or just stirring up another storm in an already noisy world. Every single text message. So to those of you who are trying that I'm seeing the messages, I am telling you to back off right now. Candace Owens is facing a wave of criticism for the personal investigation she's been conducting since the tragic incident at a Utah university, where her friend and former colleague Charlie Kirk passed away suddenly and in shocking circumstances. Since the incident, the public has been filled with emotions. Many people are shocked, angry, sad, and most of all, disbelieving. Not just because of the loss of a famous figure, but because of the way the story has been told, distorted, and spread. To be honest, I've never been a fan of Charlie Kirk. I don't follow his content, and I don't agree with every opinion he's ever expressed. But no one should have to go through that. No one. And I can only imagine the pain his friends, colleagues, and those who worked closely with him are feeling. They are not only dealing with loss, but also with a never-ending storm of suspicion, speculation, and controversy. Candace, for all her toughness and fierceness, may be seeking justice. But the bigger question is she on the right track, or is she inadvertently adding fuel to the fire that is consuming an entire movement? It's important to understand that Charlie Kirk and his podcast represent not just him personally, but also a major nonprofit organization. Turning Point USA, TPUSA, which was founded with the goal of inspiring young people to participate in political life and understand the value of personal freedom. Charlie has been a pioneer in spreading conservative ideas on college campuses, where he regularly debates, lectures, and organizes public forums. Candace Owens was a key part of TPUSA, working with Charlie for many years, becoming one of the strongest voices in the young conservative movement. However, after a while, she left the organization and joined the Daily Wire, a highly influential conservative media platform. At the Daily Wire, Candace continued to attract attention, not only for her outspoken style, but also for her controversial statements on foreign policy, especially regarding Israel. She was once seen as a pro-Israel advocate, but her views later shifted dramatically, creating a major internal debate. The tension escalated when Ben Shapiro, co-founder of the Daily Wire, an Orthodox Jew, and Dennis Prager, a veteran conservative with a similar religious background, disagreed with Candace's views. According to different sources, the situation ended with Candace leaving the Daily Wire. Some say she was forced out. Others say she left voluntarily to pursue her own direction. Since then, Candace Owens has made a strong comeback with her own podcast on YouTube, where she has complete control over the content and message. The show quickly attracted millions of views, becoming one of the most influential independent channels for social and political commentary in the conservative community. And it was here in the wake of Charlie Kirk that Candace used her platform to ask questions few dared to ask, reigniting a global debate about justice, power, and the line between truth and belief. Candace Owens has been in the spotlight again recently after being embroiled in a series of international legal issues. She is currently being sued by French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte Macron for her documentary series Becoming Brati, a project she claims is aimed at raising questions that the public has never heard before. In the series, Candace delves into controversial theories about Brigitte Macron's past, including a conspiracy theory that Bright was actually born male and is living under the identity of her late brother. Candace claims she was only investigating publicly available documents based on a book by a French journalist. However, the Macron family has filed a lawsuit in Delaware alleging that the claims in the series are false, and Candace knew it. Candace initially filed a motion to dismiss the case, arguing that she was simply exercising her right to free speech and exploiting legal sources. However, Macron recently filed a supplementary complaint, expanding the case with hundreds of pages of new documents, turning the case into a protracted legal battle that could see Candace face many challenges in Delaware courts in the future. She continues to face international obstacles. Last week, the Australian High Court ruled to uphold the decision to deny Candace Owens an entry visa. According to an official statement, the Australian government said that it does not want to allow individuals who could cause division in society or incite communal conflict to enter the country. That means Candace is now banned from entering Australia, at least while the case is still under review. Still, she remains defiant, declaring that the truth has no boundaries, and insisting she will continue to speak her mind despite the legal hurdles that lie ahead. From the Delaware court to the CRA ruling, Candace Owens is at the center of a global debate where the lines between free speech, media responsibility, and political consequences are increasingly blurred. Amid all the controversy, Candace Owens' investigation into the Charlie Kirk case has reached a boiling point. Many of her colleagues in the conservative podcast world, people who were once her collaborators or friends, are now publicly criticizing Candace, not only for the questions she raises about Charlie's death, but also for the way her investigation seems to implicate people close to him. Some prominent figures in the conservative community have spoken out directly against her claims. If you are under pressure, if people are starting to look at you funny as an organization, if they're thinking that, whether rightfully or wrongfully, if they are suspecting because they see this footage of someone quickly remove the SD cards that you guys had something to do with the assassination of Charlie Kirk, and you quite literally have footage that in theory should vindicate yourself, why wouldn't you release it? You're observing those two little boxes. And they told me that that was a trap door, and I remember when I looked at the footage, I felt like it was coming up. I don't know anything about ballistics. I'm not an expert. But if there was a hatch door nearby, then we can assume, as we should always assume with colleges, obviously stadiums, there's always an underground path. So I'm wondering if the federal government has explored the possibility that somebody could have been under Charlie and done that. I'm not kidding. And I'm going to show you these messages. I came across what looked to me like a bunch of people talking about bees. You're going, what? Like literally bees, in a way that the only way I can describe it to you was like they were speaking about bees, but they weren't speaking about bees. It was very coded, and I'm going, am I going crazy, or do you think that all these people are really actually quote-unquote bee farmers? Or saying that they farm bees? What is this lingo that I'm not understanding? Some messages in the thread even mention Charlie being pressured by influential donors, disapproving of his close relationship with Tucker Carlson, or even his friendship with Candace Owens herself. Candace believed that Charlie was slowly changing his views on Israel, and that this change might have led him into hidden conflicts. In later podcast episodes, she has hinted that Turning Point USA, or even a higher-level agency, might be hiding something related to Charlie's case. As time goes on, her narrative becomes increasingly unclear between investigation and personal feelings. Candace says she keeps having strange dreams, seeing symbols of bees, underground passageways, and a trap door. As if her mind is trying to guide her to find answers, she insists that all of this is just a personal attempt to understand what happened to her best friend during a time when she is experiencing deep grief and loss. What has been harder for the public to accept, however, is a bold theory she recently floated that Israel or related groups might be behind part of this story. Although no concrete evidence has been presented, Candace's mere suggestion has sent social media into a frenzy. And now, while some believe Candace is just grieving and seeking the truth in her own way, others believe she has gone too far, She feels as if the world has turned its back on her. And amid the storm of criticism, Candace Owens seems to believe there is something unsaid, and she is the only one willing to find the answers. Candace Owens is in a tumultuous place right now. She can't travel to Israel because of controversy surrounding her views. She's being sued by French President Emmanuel Macron and his wife Brigitte Macron over her Becoming Bridget series. And now she can't travel to Australia after the country's Supreme Court upheld a decision to deny her a visa. In fact, many have quipped she's been effectively cut off from an entire continent. Meanwhile, many influential conservative figures, people who have worked with or supported her, are turning their backs on her. They're unfollowing her, publicly calling on their audiences to stop supporting her and criticizing her for being inflammatory, divisive, or potentially biased. On the flip side, however, Candace still has a large, loyal following. Her podcast audience continues to grow, and the comments on social media, especially Instagram, show that the majority of her audience is on her side. Many say that while they don't always agree with Candace's views, they respect her right to ask questions, to investigate, and to pursue the truth in her own way. When I asked my audience about this reaction about whether Candace is being over-criticized, most responded that she is doing what no one else dares to do, questioning things that are considered unmentionable. Some called her a truth teller in the midst of a public storm, while others said she was simply using the attention to build her personal brand. Of course, not everyone was on her side. In the comments, there were harsh comments calling her opportunist, truth twister, or using the name of a deceased friend to gain publicity. They say Candace doesn't rely on evidence, but on intuition, dreams, and emotional speculation to shape her story. And perhaps that's what's most special about Candace Owens. She's someone who leaves no one indifferent. Whenever her name is mentioned, social media divides into two distinct camps. You either love her or you hate her. There's no middle ground. Personally, there are many things Candace says that I disagree with, but there are also moments when she raises questions that make the world stop and think. Maybe that's what makes her, despite her controversy, one of the most inescapable voices of our time. I think that makes sense. And frankly, what I find most hypocritical is that many of Candace's fellow conservatives are trying to silence her for daring to ask questions. Whether you believe her investigation was right or not, she has a right to learn and to question. That's the basis of free speech, which they themselves once defended. The irony is that the same people who are criticizing her are using their platforms to talk about the case in their own way. They're also talking about the impact of this on their community, about the pain and loss they feel because many of them knew Charlie in real life. I think we're seeing a wave of emotion where the pain and grief is being turned into an internal division. People are letting their emotions take over, letting their sadness turn into doubt and anger. But in retrospect, I believe the last thing Charlie wanted was for his departure to be the reason for people who were once friends to turn against each other. Whether you loved Charlie or hated him, one thing is for sure: he fought for his beliefs, and he certainly didn't want to see the community divided because of him. All of this tension eventually led to a notable decision by Candace. She took a break from her podcast. Her last live broadcast was on October 9th, and she hasn't done any new broadcasts since. In her announcement, Candace said she needed time to reflect and hit the reset button. However, she did hint at a comeback. A few days later, on her old personal account, Candace posted information about a new book project, a book about Sigmund Freud, in conjunction with an online book club she would be hosting in the near future. Clips from the final broadcast quickly resurfaced on TikTok, where viewers began discussing the message behind her words. One of the most prominent clips showed Candace opening up about what was really going on with her: the exhaustion, the pressure, and feeling misunderstood by the world. Although she chose to stay silent for now, it's clear that Candace never left the conversation. Maybe she was just taking a step back to prepare for the next chapter. Keeps me up at night. Just nothing in his life was real. Like everyone's just like, oh, let's just move on. It's so crazy to want to figure out what happens. Let's just start issuing gag orders, and the way to honor him is to give money. I don't know. There's just something really sick and demonic about the entire thing. Fire tomorrow. I'm next week. I just had to. 27 the 27th. We'll be back on Monday, full steam ahead. Just really needed to just take a breather. And really